Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Oracle on Purpose podcast, where we help intentional leaders clarify their purpose and next steps to create a work and life of significance. I am your host, Leah Dunlap, and you are listening to the Oracle on Purpose podcast, where we help intentional leaders clarify their purpose and next steps to create a work and life of significance. I'm your host, Leah Dunlap. Today, I am super excited to share a soul-rocking, life-changing rebel whose passion for leadership sets stages on fire. My guest today is Dr. Melissa Bird. She's given hundreds of speeches and workshops across the country, including speaking to audiences at the University of Missouri, School of Social Work, the Oregon State University, Portland State University, Women in Leadership, the National Association of Perinatal Social Workers, First Congregational United Church of Christ, and the Episcopal Church of the Good Samaritan. Whew, lots of churches, lots of nationalities, all across the board, right? She's blowing it up. So her combination of education, real life experience, and practical advice makes her a powerful force of change in the lives of the people she speaks to. Past audience members have described her as fierce, revelatory, I love that word, life-changing, enthusiastic, and inspirational, which is part of the reason I wanted her on our show. As a life coach, author, and fiery public speaker, Dr. Bird creates a genesis for a new brand of leadership and a graceful revolution, which we are going to definitely hit on. Her words awaken revolutionaries, trailblazers, and powerful innovators in the quest for justice. Sounds so amazing. When she's not building her public speaking business, she can be found reading trashy novels, drinking fine whiskey. My husband and her would get along very well, playing mom to 3 delicious humans, and loving her punk rock scientist, James Thomas Kelly. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Let's get started. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Melissa Bird. Can I call you Melissa?
Yeah, you can call me Misty if you want.
Misty. Ooh, I feel like I'm on the inside now. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. And I'm so glad you said yes to joining us. I know that our listeners are going to get a lot of good information and be fueled and fired up by the time this call is over. So, as you might know, and as my audience knows, I'm an intuitive business architect, and I specialize in helping leaders to find and follow their purpose, primarily so that they can figure out what their real work is meant to be and that they can live a life of significance. So my first question to you is, how do you find alignment with your purpose and business genius in your work?
So my falling into my intuition with my business was a struggle. And when I first started my business, my coach had said, you'd be a really great coach to do is I want to be on stage and I want to do speaking and I really want to connect with people that way. And she said, you really ought to try coaching. And what happened was I just started putting content out into the world and I couldn't get hired to do speaking. And my coach said, you need to make your own stage. Make your own stage. And that's when I started going live on Facebook twice a week. And in the beginning, I was like, nobody's ever going to listen to this. I'm talking into the ether. No one's going to hear me. And then people started responding to my Facebook lives and I started downloading them on YouTube. So I'd have a YouTube channel and I'd get them off of Facebook, right? And what happened was I started listening to the intuitive hits, right? I started pulling my cards every day. I started looking for the signs that people were hearing me and seeing me. I started paying attention when I get random emails from people and they would say, hey, you've said something that just changed my life forever. Thank you so much. And so I started paying attention to what signs I was being given. And that's how I always knew I was on the right track.
That's great. So what I love about that too is such an important piece of anything that we're doing when we're tapping into our intuition is the biggest thing. I think it goes for anything, right? Coaching, parenting, whatever you're doing. Number one, you got to be listening. And I love that. I love that that's a part of what brought you to understanding and aligning with your purpose, which
Yeah.
of course is paying off in spades, which people don't think, like, that's the other part of it, right? It pays off in spades to listen and follow that alignment, because that is where your, as I like to say, where your sweet spot really is. Your purpose and prosperity sweet spot is right there. So that is fantastic. And how, so your business is Natural Born Rebel, right? So tell me a little bit about what that looks like now. You're doing speaking, you're coaching. What is Natural Born Rebel represent? What audience are you sharing your work with?
So this is another one of those really fun moments where I found about how I found my purpose with my work. So I had a friend of mine call me while I was on my way to the airport. I was in San Bernardino, California teaching. And she said, I don't know why I'm getting this message, but we really need you to start Natural Born Rebel. And I need you to write a book about what it means to be a natural born rebel. And you need to start Rebel School. And here's the message from the divine. And I just need you to do this. And I was like, what? And so she gave me some little tidbits from my guides. And she's like, just do this. And I was like, girl, you've lost it. But what happened, Leah, is that I got on that plane and I wrote an entire book on the plane from San Bernardino to Portland. I wrote a whole book.
Exactly.
And it's called Natural Born Rebel. And it's on our website, and everybody can have it. It's magic. It's my
great,
free
and
thing.
we will get back to that at the end,
so
before you go. So stay tuned.
But that's where Natural Born Rebel really came from, and it's this idea that we all have this inner voice inside of us. That it's about getting past that sort of James Dean rebel without a cause, smoking cigarettes, and being a hooligan kind of a thing, and really taking these moments where these thoughts that seem defined by, the patriarchy, which is something I talk about all the time, the patriarchy in our brain, but these guided ideas we have for shifting the way communities work, for shifting the way we fit into our families and our lives, for shifting the way we think. And that's that natural rebellion that I talk about, this idea that within each of us there is a natural born rebel that is meant to shift the way we think about the world, the way the world operates, and that we are supposed to be giving those messages out into the world. That's rebellion. Rebellion is thinking outside the box. Right. It's not smoking and drinking and listening to heavy metal music. No. I mean,
unless it is. I mean, it could be.
I love that. But that's like, that's
if it's whiskey, that's a whole nother story, right?
Yeah. That's true. But
well, this is a great segue into my next question, which is, what is the big vision for all this? Because, you're so passionate about this, and you definitely, kudos to your friend for giving you that beautiful download, because, as I know, we as a channel, it does us no good until we get it to the person who needs the information. And then that person has to take action on it. So kudos to her, kudos to you for following through. And that is a great testimonial, by the way, for all those of you who are listening. When you get such a gift as someone who says, here is what you're meant to do, as you showed, it is easier. It comes through you. It flows. That's the whole point. The universe is always trying to support you. And when you get such a great gift, why wouldn't you take advantage of it? Really, please listen to Melissa, listen to her friend, listen to me, do it. So tell me, because I think that this really is a great piece of this, which is, what is that big vision for what you would like to do, that impact you want to make? I know you've mentioned it a couple of times, which, talk about your revolution.
So the Graceful Revolution was actually another download that I was given back in 2014. And it is about a new brand of advocacy where we humble ourselves to our shortcomings and engage in acts of graceful revolution that bring light to the true reality of people's lives. And this all came to me in a dream. And the way it connects into Natural Born Rebel is that it's really about engaging people in their own spaces. It's about us telling the stories of our lives and how our lives can impact each other. It's about learning how systems work so that we can infiltrate membranes of power and shift the power dynamics so that more people are able to engage in their communities in a really intentional and loving and beautiful way. The Graceful Revolution is about taking our experiences and making sure that people who are in positions of power, whatever that power might be, hears them so that they know that the decisions they're making directly impact people's lives. And there is no better moment than right now for this to happen. And I had held that vision of the Graceful Revolution for a long time. And then in 2016, when the election happened, one of my friends was like, it's go time. And I was like, okay. So really this idea that every action we take to connect the real true fabric of our lives with other people, it is a revolutionary act and an experience to do that. And when you combine grace, the idea of grace with revolution, when you really connect grace with revolution, we shift the entire tide of the way people think and act in the world. And that is really the difference that I have started to create with Natural Born Rebel.
Yeah, and I want to repeat that for those of you because it broke up a little bit, and I want to make sure we hear that. When you shift the way that we look at revolution, I love that, because so much discord, right, is brought about when we look at revolution from a fight,
yes,
kind of that fight to the death kind of mentality, versus, as you're saying, like this graceful revolution, which in its essence is about evolving, right? Which I hear in that. And I also love the piece that you're saying about justice. Like there is this idea that we can bring each other together at a higher level, which is what I'm hearing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think the thing about it is that there is space for fight. Like there is definitely space for fighting, and it's important. But there's also this balance that happens. And if we some of us aren't fighters. I used to protest all the time in my 20s and 30s. Like, let's be real. I'm a fighter. I'm a fist up kind of a kid. But one of the things that I also think is really important in revolution and in shifting is that we create space for people who tend to be quieter, who tend to operate in a more, grace to me is almost about gentleness and intuitiveness, and listening to that intuition and saying, there is room for people to fight and to march and to push, but there's a balance to that for people who can infiltrate and have conversations and really connect their stories with that same sort of revolutionary stance. And I really think that there is power in really honing in on how your message in the world is just as important as everybody else's. And we need people to do that.
Right.
We need people to speak out. Everybody needs to speak out, whether we agree with them or not. We need all these voices to really connect and figure out where the shift can take place for the majority of the good.
Right. And I've used this term before, which is, universe is one song, right? It takes many voices to make one song.
And what we resist persists. That's why the resistance doesn't work, by the way. Because when we push and push and push, it persists and persists and persists. And we cannot resist. We have to surrender to our calling. And that is the rebellion. To surrender to our calling and to actually do it. I was preaching in church last year, and I talked about how the original sin is not about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That the original sin is not listening to the gift that God gave us so that we can go out into the world and enact that purpose in the world. Exactly. The low-hanging fruit is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. The true rebellion is really listening to our gifts and honing in on that purpose and flying out towards that purpose and going towards that purpose. And when we do that, we are engaging in acts of graceful revolution that truly change the fabric of everybody's lives, not just ours.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that that is one of the biggest things that brought us together was this idea and this concept, which of course, if you've listened to me for 5 minutes, you know that I am all about everyone finding and following their unique life purpose. Is a 1 in 400 quadrillion. That's a 4 with 17 zeros behind it. Chance that you are born, people. You. 1 in 400 quadrillion. That is not an accident. And that absolutely, if there's no other proof that you need, that's the proof that says you are here on purpose, the way you are, who you are, what you have to offer. And as Melissa's saying, your voice is important and what you have to share is important. And yes, we can indeed find a way to a graceful revolution. And if you want to know more about that, I'm going to give Melissa the last word here and a chance to talk a little bit more about how you can find out about her book. So yeah, take it away, Liz. Tell me your last thought here on purpose, revolution, and how we can, change the face of the world, and give us a chance to know how we can get a hold of that fabulous book.
So the one thing that drives me is the quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, do one thing every day that scares you. I have been living by that mantra for decades. And I engage in things every day that push me just past scared, right? And every day my life is richer and fuller because of it. I've taken a lot of risk, and I talk about that in the book. So you can download Natural Born Rebel on my website. It's free, and it's got some journal prompts in it that really help you hone in on your own form of rebellion, your own form of graceful revolution, the things that really drive you and push you to do one thing every day that scares you. And so there's journal prompts in there, and you can find the book at naturalbornrebel.com. And you can also follow me on social media at birdgirl1001. And if you follow me on Twitter, that's where I throw my tantrums. So I have like my tantruming space where I am not the same on Twitter that I am anywhere else. I get really vulgar and really obnoxious and really saucy on Twitter because I just love throwing tantrums on Twitter.
Follow the sauce. I love it. All right. So there you are. Follow Melissa, find her, follow her, download her book. Don't worry about links. If you're like, really fast, we will have them in the comment section so you can find her, follow her, and keep an eye on her, because there is no doubt in my mind she is headed to be the leader of a graceful revolution. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. Everyone who's watching, like I said, make sure you get attached to her and follow her as well. Thanks again for everybody watching. I'm Leah Dunlap, the Oracle on Purpose, and this is the Oracle on Purpose podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Oracle on Purpose show. If you found value in this episode, we'd appreciate you leaving a comment. Also, you can subscribe and ring the bell if you haven't yet. If you'd like to get clear on your highest vision and next steps, go to oracleonpurpose.com. See you next week.